Hi, thank you so much to Yonatan and the Hanhala for giving me an opportunity to share some Torah with everybody on Parashat Matot-Masei. In Parashat Masei, one of the things discussed is the Goel Adam and the Ir Miklat, and the whole situation with somebody who kills b'shogeg. So if a person kills accidentally, they have the opportunity to run to one of these cities that was set up as an Ir Miklat. It was one of the first things that we see in Devarim later on that was set up when you came into Eretz Yisrael. And they were set up on both sides of the Yarden, Eber Yarden, and on the Israel side. And it was a crucial, seemingly, place to have within Bnei Israel, and to have these Ir Miklat for people who killed b'shogeg to run to. And in the parsha over here, it says that the time that a person would spend within the Ir Miklat was the time, if he killed b'shogeg, was until the Kohen Gadol died. And Rashi over here says on the pasuk, he says the idea Kohen Gadol shu bal lahashros Shechina b'Yisrael, because the Kohen Gadol was supposed to go ahead and send Shechina down into Yisrael, hu larich yameim, and let them lengthen their days on this earth. But arotzeach bal esalik it's a Shechina, and the person who kills is taking away from the Shechina meYisrael mekater es chayim me'chayim, and he's taking away the days of their life. Eino kedai shei lifnei Kohen Gadol. This kind of person should be in front of the Kohen Gadol. So therefore he stays in the Ir Miklat, because he can't be near the Kohen Gadol. And then Rashi says another thing, Davar acher lefi shehaya lo Kohen Gadol lispalal shelo tera takala zuli Yisrael b'chayav. And the other thing is that the Kohen Gadol was supposed to pray that this guy, that there's no takala should happen to Bnei Israel, and therefore he needs to wait within the Ir Miklat. So there's a few questions that I have, and that the Lubavitch Rabbi actually brings up in Likutei Sichos, and I'm going to give over some of his Torah today, and it's Chelek Lamed Gimel over here, and he says like this: number one, I don't understand the second answer. Whose fault is it? If the Kohen Gadol didn't daven, so why is it that the guy has to stay in the Ir Miklat? So what's Rashi's second answer have to do with anything? And according to the first answer, right, it doesn't even take into consideration the idea that there's a Goel Adam who was running after him. There was this person who, he was going for refuge. This seems to be just like he's not supposed to be there because, he brings this negativity into the world, and the Shechina is supposed to be present through Ava, and this guy who kills b'shogeg is taking it out of Bnei Yisrael, and that's not okay. In Parashas Shoftim, we see him over here. It says, "V'lo yicham." Right? So basically the idea is that he's heated, and we have to wait for Yicham Levavo. Who says that the idea of that someone's going to calm down is when the Kohen Gadol dies? Is that going to coincide? So first thing Lubavitch Rabbi says over here is that we see that he's not coming to give you Tama Mitzvah for the whole idea of Goel Adam and the whole idea of somebody who kills b'shogeg, but rather he's trying to come in and show you what is the connection between the Kohen Gadol and the man who kills b'shogeg, and what is going on with that piece, sort of after the Yicham Libo, after he was protected. Why is that the shear that we have to sort of wait for? And the Rebbe says something that's sort of fascinating, and you see this as it's a tzad shava between the two answers also of Rashi. One answer of Rashi is seemingly it's the person who killed's fault. There was an avon on him, right? And because he killed, and this avon is on him, he has to be miskaper for that avon, right? And therefore, he's not right to be in Klal Yisrael at this point. He's got to stay out. And the second answer seems to be, no, it's really a din of the Kohen Gadol, right? And he was supposed to go ahead and daven for this thing. But it's not just that, the Rebbe wanted to say. He said he wanted to say there really was a Chiyav Misa on this person. And this Chiyav Misa isn't able to be, fulfilled because of killing b'shogeg. But the idea is a nefesh should be sort of taken away. And we know this idea of misas, and Rashi talks about this in Parshas Chukas, that misas tzadikim is miskaper. But the question is, why this specific tzaddik? Why does it have to be the Kohen? What's the connection between the Kohen Gadol specifically in this, and this man who killed b'shogeg? So Lubavitch Rebbe says very amazingly, he says, this whole idea has to do with Avas Yisrael, with love of Israel. The job of a Kohen, as we know, when he says duchens, he says levarich esamo Yisrael bi'ava, right? They're blessing Bnei Yisrael specifically with this idea of Ava. Aaron was Oviv Shalom v'Rodev Shalom. His job was to pursue all of that. We also even know, I think there's an amazing answer also, when we think about the idea that the Ir Miklat were set up on both sides, Ever Yarden, the whole idea of splitting Chati Shev and Menashe, right? We know in the first set of Psukim it didn't have Menashe, and the second set of Psukim it does have it added in. He's not one of the people who asked to necessarily go to the Ever Yarden. And part of that idea is that there's always this bond between Bnei Yisrael. There's this ahava, there's this love. But yes, a killing is misalik that. A person who takes away the Shekhinah, life is what brings that in. That's a problem and a pigam. And this pigam is and this Kohen was, as a leader of Bnei Yisrael, was supposed to try to be preemptive in preventing this pigam, and he wasn't able to do that. But through his love, he cares so much about that person who's in the Ir Miklat that he wants his nefesh to be a pidyon nafsho for this guy to have a second chance. So he represents the Ava in the world, the Kohen Gadol, and he's the one who's bringing that down and trying to spread that in the most intense way, right? And that's the bechina of Aaron, according to the Lubavitch Rabbi. And this idea that he's kulo Ava, he can't be in front of someone who has taken that life. However, he still cares about that person, even if he can't be with him. And that's a lesson in Ava itself, that Ava doesn't always mean that we have to necessarily be there with the same exact person, right? Meaning to be there for them means that we have to be there physically. Sometimes being there means not to be there. As we know with parenting, sometimes we need our children to grow and to see how they can work things out by themselves. And that is as well as Ava. My blessing to you guys is that, and my bracha to Klal Yisrael at this time, is that during this time of the 3 weeks, we think about the idea of sinas chinam and the idea of kamsa and bar kamsa. The concept that the Rabbanim there in that situation didn't show the love and the ava for the person who was in distress and in need. And that we are able to take that idea of Aaron and be Oev Shalom, Rodiv Shalom, and continue to build our world from love and see us, our redemption, Meir V'Imenu Amen. Have a great Shabbos.